Headed through the mountains to Spokane for the Fall Antique Show. I'm so excited we're doing it again. Let's show you what the last one was like.
Well, here we are.
Last year I got to be here as a shopper. This year I'm selling, so we are going to film what we can because this is the Custer's Antique Show in Spokane, Washington, the 49th spring show. It's the 50th anniversary of Expo 74, the World's Fair in Spokane, and people here seem to be really excited about their antiques and vintage again. We were so mobbed yesterday, I never picked up the camera once. In fact, I never stopped selling all day long. It was really amazing, and there's still a lot of really great stuff left, so let's go take a look. Well, the first display we see is actually something a little bit more like the Farm Chick show that they have in June here in Spokane, because it has a lot of things that you find on farms. Faded signs, crates and crate ends, wire baskets, all sorts of things that are pretty useful to people, as well as the sorts of things that you used to see on farmsteads in this part of the world. And people who are really into decorating farmhouse like a real farmhouse and not just painting something white and scraping it and calling it good, well, this is the sort of thing that they look for. This roto bin from an old hardware store is $580. That's about what they seem to sell for. I've always wanted one for display. I'm not sure what I'd do with it, but I bet I'd find something. They've got old ammo boxes and these industrial lights that were in a lot of barns. They've got old sets of legs from old stoves and things that you could repurpose into tables. And of course, antlers. And a nice set of Lenox ware that matches the umbrella on this 1960s era patio set. Well, I sold a couple of quilts yesterday. These folks have one that is a block, and this is heavier material. A lot of times they'd save old flannel shirts and suit material, and I think these are old flannel shirts, priced at $135. That looks like it's something from probably the 1930s, looking at the colors and the material. They have a lot of fun things that run the gamut from old farm stuff like sleigh bells. 75 is a pretty good deal. People are used to seeing them on leather, but they did come on canvas as well. Cute little speedster wagon. That looks like a 1930s piece. Churns do well. These are the kind of things that people who live in real farms had. And this is the kind of farmhouse I like. Cotylene. It contains no hog fat, but it contained a bunch of not healthy for you ingredients instead. It turns out that certain things made out of cottonseed are not necessarily good for you to ingest. This is an old store display, I believe, although sometimes people have these at home to keep their coffee or tea, but usually when they're that size, I associate this with an old general store. They have that priced at $125, and that's going to date right around 1900. And lest you think Harvest Gold was strictly a 70s color, well, it was called ochre back in the arts and crafts in the late Victorian era, and it was very popular then too. Coffee tins can really be good, and there's some older ones here. This one with this copper lustery color paint is going to be from about 1890, priced at $59. This one with the round cap and the red, very nice. Little different shapes, $65 on that. That seems like a good price. I've sold 1940s and 50s coffee tins for some pretty good prices. This is only $59. Caswell's Kona coffee. Lard buckets you see a little more often. They tended to be saved because they had a handle. This one is from a local source here in Spokane, so even though it doesn't have a lid, it's priced higher because of local interest and the pig graphic being more obvious. $29 on the one on the left, $35 on the Spokane. One of the first dealers you see when you come in is Brent's Antiques, and boy does he have really great stuff. He personally collects, as well as buying and selling, all sorts of early photography, not just from the Northwest, but he is quite a Civil War buff and knows a lot about it. And he also has a Varga calendar from 1946 here. He gets a lot of militaria. This is a cabinet photo from the Spanish-American War with soldiers on patrol. That looks like it might be in the Philippines. Look at these great local interest cowgirls from about 1910. Look at her throwing the lasso. When you lived out in this part of the world, women had to be able to do a lot of the stuff that men could do. And it definitely changed things. In fact, Wyoming in 1869 was the first state to give women the right to vote. Good picture of Teddy Roosevelt there. He's a distant cousin of mine. A sailboat from about 1910. This has that goldette sort of a tone to it. And those with that gold printing tend to be more valuable. And you know what'll happen if you don't buy something. Look at this cool old cowboy hat from the early part of the 20th century. He says this one's Southwestern. Notice it's not so much about being a big hat, it's about being practical. $65 on that. And he's got some samplers, and these have some real age to them. This one is Eliza Gott's, age 9 years, from 1861. This one's quite a bit older. This is 1805. And he's written out everything so that we can read it a little bit easier. This is the old script where there's F's instead of S's, and that's a clue as to age. And then this was done by someone 6 years old. It is amazing. You had to learn these skills early in life because you were expected to help around the house. It's hard to find anybody who knows how to do any of this stuff now. And this is by an 11-year-old girl in 1832. And he's got these priced at $150 a piece, which is pretty good. Samplers used to sell for really big money, and so that seems like a pretty good deal to me. Well, here we go. The Iroquois moccasins belong to me. I would say these are probably 1920s, judging by the colorations of the beads, maybe even teens and the liner. Yeah, actually, I'm thinking teens. That was very generous. Now, not everybody here is an ongoing dealer. These folks are clearing out their parents' house, and they have decided to bring it here. And they sold a bunch yesterday, and they said this is a one and done for them. They just came here to liquidate things. And they have some pretty good prices on things. The orange Padre bowl, this looks like Bauer, but the rings are a little different. A lot of other companies in California did ringware too. Priced at $38.50. This is a very pretty piece here with the roses. Nice porcelain double-handled bowl with the Rosenthal mark. Fairly early Rosenthal, actually, from probably about 1910. Durkin's was a big distributor of liquor and wine and that sort of thing in the pre-Prohibition era in Spokane. These local interest pieces, of course, are going to sell for more here. They're priced at $175 each. And this is an original Planter's peanut jar, and I'd like to show you this because there's so many reproductions. Reproductions feel real slick and greasy because they're new. The planters in the stippling is often on the top on the reproductions. This is underneath the lid on this one. And take a look just in general. Mr. Peanut looks a little different. He was a little more detailed when he came out. There's a little bit of fading, as there should be. And look at the bottom. Look at the wear. That's the big telltale. This was on top of a counter in a store. It got moved around all the time. Every time people bought peanuts, it got moved around. So it should look like it was moved around a lot. So that one's a real one, $135. The dealer with all the amazing silver has come back from the San Francisco Bay Area to sell her again, and I know she said she does well in this market. And one thing she has this time are pickle casters, and these are old ones with the correct liner and the correct bail. The most important thing is that the bail, the piece with the handle that holds the thing, it should fit tightly in that. If it is wobbling around loose, then somebody broke the glass and they put a new one in, and that happened a lot. So you really want to make sure you've got the original glass with the piece. I get asked a lot about these lamps because a lot of times this piece of glass is gone broken, has been replaced. They were just a thin piece of glass like this. They generally are the curved shape. If you see a different shape, that's a telltale sign that it's been replaced. They often have frosting like this to give it some dimension so the light would come through. It was to silhouette the chalkware wolf, and you'll see other things, ships and things as well. So this one is original with the original glass, and that's why it's worth the $125. I see a lot of them priced with that with reproduction shades, and they're just not as valuable without the originals. Some neat bookends here, 1920s cast iron with the dogs. The pointers are $69 for the pair. And this looks like a horse racer. These are hollow castings from about 1930. This set is hammered metal. Hammered metal was very popular in the arts and crafts era from about 1895 to around 1920. And then these are going to be in some sort of a cast aluminum from the 1930s with that great headdress. And sometimes painted, as you see there. Lucille Ball started some serious movies, but, you know, screwball comedy was just her thing. And she and Eddie Albert knew it when she was in this movie with him, The Fuller Brush Girl. Let's see if we can see a date on here. It's a great poster. It could use some restoration. But this came out in 1950. There's the 50-512. So this came out just shortly before she and Desi Arnaz launched their TV series, which nobody wanted to take on at first. The idea of having a Hispanic and a white person living under one roof, even though that was their real life, seemed very radical to the people who put on television. And that's part of why the television studios did not want to film it for syndication. So they said, okay, we'll take the rights to that and we'll do it. And they made a fortune and were able to create Desilu Productions. You can see back there what happens to old sewing machine cases. If the case isn't all there, or it's falling apart, or the machine head is gone, people are making them into little sets of drawers. And I like the way, if you can see on the top there, they've actually used old rulers to be the pavers for the top of the boxes. These creels are nice. Notice the one on the left, it's a little looser weave. That probably came from Japan and is more likely to be 1940s or 50s. The first one we saw was 40 years older than that. The one on the right looks older with the leather padding, and it's also had a lot more darkening because of exposure to air and no doubt water over the years. There's some serious arts and crafts furniture. This is a Stickley piece. It is signed, and this is from about 1910. And signed Stickley pieces sell for good money. They've got $8.50 on this desk. Very graceful proportions. There's lots of other arts and crafts furniture that mimics this, and it's good quality with nice heavy oak, but the Stickley pieces generally have a very balanced and simple design. And there's our stock number on the bottom there.
If you're enjoying this video, please click thumbs up to like it. Please subscribe if you haven't. That way you can click the bell to be notified of future videos and see all our fun all over the country as we do shows, shop at shows, go to thrift stores, all the fun things that we do in the antique and vintage community here.
Well, I'm walking into the main room here, and we've got the beer guy, and he is here pretty much every show, and he gets really cool stuff. And you can just sort of take it in. I see the Space Needle up there. I haven't seen that one before. And he's got some Olympia. He's got Rainier, the only beer, so he's got a lot of local interest this time. I always like the brocade patterns in Fostoria. And this is oak wood. It was difficult to do this. They had to do a relief and then do the iridescence over it so that you would have the brocade with the clear leaves behind. It was a very complicated thing to do, and it's especially this particular one with the gilding, and this color is hard to find because it's the azure blue, and so it's priced at $3.95. This space is my friend Dennis Canavans. He's been in the business for a long time. He really knows his glass and his dinnerware and a whole lot of other things. I've learned a lot from him over the years. Here's a beautiful piece that I've never seen before. This pattern is Heisey's Prince of Wales, and that's why you have this crown-like effect. And it says this is from 1902, so Heisey had only been in business for 5 years when they made this piece. It's priced at $4.50, and I never have seen one, so he knows his stuff. I imagine it's that scarce. The Fenton Blue Burmese tumble up. He's got $2 something on that. That's how much I got for mine. Look at the Moon and Stars decanter from L.E. Smith. You really don't see that in that color very often at all. So he gets patterns that are familiar to people, but he gets really unusual pieces in the patterns that you may never have seen. And I believe he's got $185 on that. This is this wonderful shell pink. This is Charlton decoration with the flowers. Charlton decorated a lot of different people's wear. It wasn't just Fenton. They did some Westmoreland, they did some Cambridge. This Cambridge nude comport, just beautiful. And a hard piece to find once again. He's got a bunch of the shell pink in Cambridge right now. That color is definitely coming back into popularity. Some pretty jewelry here, and the thing that jumps out at me is this clamper bracelet with all the rhinestones. You can tell by the way it's made that this is from the 1950s, and it's priced at $100. Every so often you'll find some new old stock on cards from some company that's not around anymore. These were just little fascinators or things you could make into other stuff back in the 1970s. I almost always see this in gold, and this one's in silver. This is Sarah Coventry. And this one actually says something on the back. Wendy Bagwell and the Sunlighters. Interesting. I don't know who Wendy Bagwell is or the story behind that, but I think I have to have that for $10. Well, what do you think, folks? I like it. I think I'm going to wear it all day, unless someone buys it. This butterfly out of the 70s is going to fly off to my booth as well, because she's doing a buy one, get one on the low-end stuff. Wow, what a deal. Old newspaper boxes are definitely something people are collecting because, well, there's not a lot of newspaper left and not a lot of home delivery. This is the Tacoma News Tribune from the other side of the state, and they want $35 for that, which is a pretty good price for, it's a little rough in condition, but I've seen them sell for double that. If you see big leaf trays with lots of speckled gold and they look very 50s and abstract and sort of seem to have a lot of design going on, the chances are they're by California Originals, and this one has the Calif Originals on the bottom. They started in 1955, shortly after Treasure Craft. They were competitors, but they were also friends. And Treasure Craft originally called itself Treasure Craft Originals, and California Originals came up with the name from that. Some very pretty art glass here, a whole bunch of paperweights. A lot of these are going to be 80s, 90s era when the studios were doing a lot, but she's got some neat Millefiori here too, priced at $45 each. And this one's interesting. Labeled Murano. Oh yes, I see you have an eye cold. The Rick Hunter are these?
Yeah, with iridescence.
Beautiful. Oh yes. Nice signatures on these, and yes, prices are good on these. $85 for this. Very nice swirl, and this one has been priced down to $100, which seems very reasonable. Very nice pieces of art glass. We know some people who, if they were here, would be scarfing this up. Another eye cold priced at $75. This is another YouTube viewer who has never done a show before, and she said she did really well yesterday. Hello, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
This is Tony, and you'll recognize her sometimes from the chat, but she has, you've done flea markets and stuff before, right?
Yeah, like the antique stores in the parking lot.
Yeah, and how does this compare to that?
Oh my, this is night and day.
Isn't it amazing?
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
When they opened yesterday, I was talking to my other daughter and had my back to the crowd, and all of a sudden she goes, and I look, I've never seen that many people.
It's so fun, isn't it? I'm so glad that you tried this, and I'm so glad you're having a good show. You had really fun things, and you still have some fun things, but you've sold a bunch, I can tell.
Yes, I did. I'm excited, and if I do as good as yesterday, great. If I don't, great. I had fun, and I've already told them I want this booth space next October.
Awesome. Oh, that's great. Well, I'm so glad. I plan to be here in October, too, so we'll see each other again. Hi there. Oh, yes, I hear you like glass. That's great. Hi there, nice to meet you both.
This is my mentor.
Yeah. Well, I'm so tickled that it's gone well for you and that you're having fun. And I'm going to show a little bit of what's in your booth while I have a second. There's Hull. This is part of the ebb tide line, the shell dish there. We see all these caddies, but you don't see the St. Bernard with his bottle of hooch that often. You usually see the dachshund and that sort of thing. These were advertised in the back of Esquire magazine and places like that in the 50s, and you could put matches or keys there and your other stuff in the back end. I always thought that that was really cute, and I don't really see this guy so often. $24 seems like a great price for him. Blanco twin spout, $60. You pay more than that if you're buying them from the factory these days. That's a fact. And then a nice little bird there. We've got some Murano dishes. There's an Empoli glass there, the bottle decanter. I sold one of mine yesterday. And she also has something I have in my collection at home, which I just love, which is the Cambridge Elephants cocktail shaker and glasses. Just love that thing. I Can't justify buying another one because I don't have that many parties, but it's really cool. There's the dog caddy we're used to seeing the most, and then a hedgehog cookie jar. That's really cute. Probably a biscuit jar, actually, for little English cookies. These folks have a lot of the things that new generations are collecting, including glow-in-the-dark movie monsters. Wow. Model kits that haven't been made. Obviously Star Wars things. The Darth Vader caddy is only $20 here. There's an earlier Kenner piece, the Micro Collection. It's fun because, you know, this helps new generations get interested in collecting, and it helps us who've been in the business a while see what the future of certain types of collecting are. This is what toy collecting looks like today. And what it looked like yesterday. I like this Ideal toy stagecoach set here in the original box for $80. They've got the classic 70s Texaco tanker truck also in the original box. These are friends of mine who sell at Tower Avenue Antiques in Centralia, where I sell. And they've got some really cool stuff. I've got to say, $50 on the angelfish seems like a good deal for the Hull ebb tide. We just saw the cornucopia shell dish in another space. This is Coors Rosebud, a 1930s pattern. Coors, yes, related to Coors beer. During Prohibition, they were looking for other things to do, and one of the things they did was start making dinnerware. Some nice 1950s Fire King jadeite. Always love a Rabia. The cow is just so cute. Notice they have several Scripto view lighters. The view lighter was by Scripto. They were popular in the early 60s. Even better if you can find them with an original case, but they're really fun because they could have had any number of things put in the clear part. Fishing lures and flies were a popular thing. A basketball player. Wow, this is a pretty set.
It's acid cut cameo. It's Baccarat.
It's Baccarat. Oh, interesting. It looks like their color, but I haven't seen their acid cut cameo before. Wow.
Don't see it too often.
No, but you always have things that you don't see too often. That's what's great about coming in here.
Late 19th into the 20th century, right in there.
It is beautiful. Beautiful lacquer piece here, Victorian era, and you see the design on the lid with the abalone and the inlays. It's paper mache. It's amazing any of these survived. And they have that priced at $165. This is a Steuben piece. Cranberry glass was made by more companies than Fenton and Pilgrim. That is a very handsome Steuben optic swirl in the cranberry for $485. This is a fun and somewhat obscure but very collected in the Northwest piece. This is Wurette. This almost looks like a candle holder, but it is the finial to this jar. They did a lot of jars and things with these repeating slip glazes. You can tell that there's wheel thrown aspects to it, and there is the Wurette signature. It's made in Washington State in the 1960s and 70s, and it's very collectible here. This is fun because this is Lladro, but this is the Eskimo, and notice it's their colors, but it's more of a matte finish or a semi-gloss rather than the glossy glazes we're used to with them. That's an unusual treatment. I haven't seen this Majolica at a show in a long time. Most of these pieces are late 19th century, and they were made in England and France in particular. Majolica is a bastardization of Majorca, which is an island off of Italy. That one's the Toby mug from England, but there's some really pretty pieces. I like the teapot here. The glazes were bright, and it's because they wanted to make sure that they reflected light in homes that had mainly gas light, and that you could tell that there was a lot of color and design, and that's why it looks kind of like Spumoni ice cream to some people. But some pieces are definitely more studied and more controlled. This English biscuit jar is a nice example of that. So is this Art Nouveau vase. The prices have definitely come down on a lot of Majolica. If you like it, it's a great time to be buying. This little wine holder is priced at $75.
A lot of the Etruscan pieces that were made right around the turn of the century are as little as $20 now. It's hard to believe. $32 on the leaf dish. Long before Treasure Craft did leaf dishes, the Majolica companies were doing it. This one's a little more elaborate design. And these relishes were for things like asparagus or long vegetables. They even did oyster plates, and that's only $55. There was a time that would have sold for much more. Bookends here, these are Nelson McCoy with the lovebirds, and there's the Nelson McCoy mark on the back. This is a hard set to find from about 1930. Wow, yeah, I've never seen this. I guess it'd be part of the Claywood line, but it's so different.
They call that Dechiwo, Devil's Children and Women.
Devil's Children and Women, interesting. And there's the artist who did it, and that's interesting too, because I don't see a lot of attribution of Weller artists in this line, so that is really fantastic, actually. They look like they're having fun.
They play their lyres, they drink their wine, and they chase women.
Yeah, well, that sounds like an easy life. And then he's also got a Weller piece that I happen to have as well, not with me here. This is Weller's Lorbeek, and this is the Flower Frog. It's a very strange and interesting piece. They were all about streamlined design at one of their first well-molded wares from about 1931. This would have gone in the middle of a console bowl, and that piece is often missing. Oh, this is really neat. This is another local interest thing, well, Northwest interest. This is all from the old Waddles. Waddles was a restaurant right by the bridge going from Portland to Washington State over the Columbia River. It had a big sign saying, "Time to eat at Waddles," with the duck on it. They're asking $22 each for these. You just don't see much of this stuff. Nobody thought that someday people are going to want to collect this. And now they're gone. This is a salt and pepper with the Oregon State outline on it. Very fun. This is really cool, the Hamilton watch advertisement for Christmas. Now, granted, it's just cardboard, and cardboard signs don't usually do as well, but it's a good subject, and it's only $12. Next to the U.S. Post Office in Kirkland, Washington. Yeah, I think I have to have that too. Lots of little Japanese Kewpies from the 1950s and 60s, very cute and collectible.
He passed away and left just boxes and boxes.
Wow. Wow, he obviously loved the lanterns, and he's got some interesting ones too.
And what was so cool is that he actually did all the research, and he actually filled everything out.
Oh, that's great.
What it is, he had it, you know.
Oh, that's so helpful. We're always so
gosh.
grateful when an older collector can help us with this stuff. The big Dietz lantern with the reflector, you don't see the reflectors very often, and that's off an old Model T.
All the banks.
All the banks,
Yeah,
yes,
a lot of
and
those sold yesterday.
oh, I bet. Yeah,
This one is
that
really
one's
cute.
cute.
Jeff.
Oh, Met and Jeff. Oh, I've only had that one once. That's great. And I've only seen it in the Midwest. Yep, in 75. I think that's what I got for mine.
So he has a YouTube channel, and I've watched it many times, and he just is a wealth of information. He's been doing this forever. So if we have any questions, it's good.
Oh, it's very cool, though. It's so fun to see this collection. Thank you. Well, I am going to show my space because I've got to get it open, but I'm sharing space with a couple of our friends this time. This side of the booth is Corinne Jones. You'll recognize her from the chat, and you might recognize some of her original artwork. It's just really fun, and she's sold some prints of these. This is Santa Claus coming over Coeur d'Alene in Idaho. But she brought some really great 60s glass and pulley pieces, big swung vases, this nice Italian candle holder here. Great color coming through that. She sold a lot, and I was very pleased. She sold a whole lot of pink and cranberry yesterday. There used to be a whole lot more on these shelves. This is a lot of nice pink depression glass. This Sierra pattern with the sawtooth edges is one of my personal favorites. And she sold several pieces of that yesterday. She didn't sell these little pilgrim cranberry pieces, but she sold all the other cranberry she brought, and she had quite a bit. And I'm just so impressed to see the knowledge growing and the kind of things. This is Glen Eagles from Scotland. This is a company I've only occasionally seen. And she has this wonderful piece here that we believe is Paul McKinnon from about 1900 with the painting. Then this is our friend Miss Wildlife, and she came to help us, and we said, well, please bring some stuff. And she ended up bringing a table full, including some really great book banks. These are really fun, and her prices are great. I mean, $10 each is actually really inexpensive. I should probably buy some of these because I do have collectors. Now, they don't often have keys, and why is that? Well, you had to go to the bank to have them open it, because the idea was you were going to save your money and you were not going to go and blow it all, and so you didn't have access to your own money once you put it in the bank's little book there. You filled it up with your dimes, and then you took it in and they opened it up. You can tell these are 1950s era by the designs of the buildings. And look at this, the Bluebirds of Happiness with a double. I haven't seen that particular one. She's got this Georges Briard original ice bucket in the original box. A good seed box. She sold a box full of little milk bottles yesterday. And some cool Viking pieces and L.E. Smith pieces. And then jewelry, yes. We all brought jewelry. I'll show you mine in a little bit here. Nice micro mosaic bracelet here with the diamond shapes. That's unusual, but I really like this guy, I have to admit. I've had him before too, with the lucite stomach, yes.
And this is a Bob Mackie, which I didn't know about before, but the enameled pins
Oh, interesting.
are pricey.
I did not know Bob Mackie made enameled pins. That is very cool. Very cool. Oh, interesting. Well, thank you. I just learned something new. I've never seen one of those before. Perennially, one of the most amazing spaces here is Flanagan and Lane Antiques. They have such an eye for high-end, really beautiful pieces, whether it's something as simple as apothecary jars or something as interesting as this 2016 Hilltop Artist signed vase, or this Peking glass cameo, which is a Chinese cameo glass. And then in front of it, you have this piece. This vase is Kelva. This was part of the Wavecrest companies. Kelva was one of their more colorfully decorated lines. You almost never see the vases. This is a really tall one in beautiful condition, and it is priced at $500 because they're just that hard to find. Speaking of cameo, this is a really beautiful Daum Nancy bowl. You can see the Daum Nancy signature from the 1880s or 90s, and that is a multicolored. It looks like there's green, yellow, russet color, and the clear, so that's a 4-color cameo. Very, very pretty, and those are the original ones where it was all carved by hand. Nowadays they do a lot of sand blasting and things of them to do that work, so you can tell the subtlety of it compared to the newer pieces. Just beautiful. Frederick Carter for Steuben, he did a lot of their colored wares and designed for them well into the 1920s when these were made. We're still calling these Bristol glass because we just don't know a better name, because everyone knows it as this, even though these were not actually the original Bristol glass, but they are beautiful Victorian vases, which at some point, probably in the 1920s or 30s, were turned into lamps, as was the custom to do at that time. The vases themselves are circa 1880, and then the conversions were done about 50 years later, and they're priced at $495 for the pair. When you see a heavy, thick gold band with a lot of design in it, oftentimes in this country, it will be something that was done by Picard. Picard bought the blanks from other companies and then did their own gold decoration, and they have a set of 5 of the plates for $195, which for Picard China is considered rather a good price these days. This is referred to as stump work. It is a combination of wool and silk. It's a lot like crewel, but it's an all-over design, and look at the amazing detail. This is Finding the Baby Moses, and this was done sometime in the mid-Victorian period. Imagine someone having the patience and time to do that. This lovely wave is a George Howell Gay piece. He painted between the 1870s approximately and 1931 was his date of passing. This is going to be sometime around 1910. You can tell in part because it was popular to put a period after your last name. It was also popular to sign your H's with a couple of stilts and a very high cross. But the detail's really nice. This is a watercolor on paper, priced at $4.50. Is a listed artist. I like this heavy upholstery on this old platform rocker. Called a platform rocker because it doesn't rock back and forth on its base. The base sits on top of a platform and then you rock back and forth on that, so it doesn't take as much of a footprint. That's priced at $175. And this is a very nice settee in the same patterning, so they must have had this in the same house. This is priced at $280. What's nice about this one is it's not so thickly padded in the back that you would have trouble sitting in it. They used to be very deep because women had bustles to lean against. But now for us taller people, this would be a decent fit. Only $75 on this very nice 1950s desk. We were selling a lot of these, and now everybody suddenly had to have a home office 4 years ago. Well, they've got one already, and so now desks are slow again. Folks always have fun stuff, and one of the things they have that I have in my space is stuff related to Expo 74 because it has been 50 years. And when Expo opened, it looked like this. It was a huge transformation for downtown Spokane. This had been an elevated freeway and a giant train yard in the middle of the river and no pedestrian access. And now all of a sudden it was this centerpiece to the city, and it really saved the downtown, which is still a vital, thriving place. And they've recently redone parts of the park in honor of the 50th anniversary. The muggers get some neat stuff. I like this dome trunk with the painting on top. Of course, the dome was to keep other things from being stacked on top, so you would get your luggage off of the ship first because it had to go on the top. Worked great until everyone did it. This is bamboo ware or raffia ware. It's nice to see the whole set with the caddy. And the pitcher is unusual. The raffia is sandwiched between the layers of the glass, so if it developed a crack, well, then you could get leaks. But this stuff was really well made and it didn't tend to crack. And then here's some more plastic fantastic. It's not just Tupperware that people are collecting in plastic. Here is raffia ware by Thermotemp in the full plastic design. Cute little lucite top purse with the metalwork there for only $35. These folks have wonderful turquoise jewelry. And there's such a demand for this. I especially like this squash blossom with the really, really deep color. Very uniform, not a lot of matrix in that particular one. This is Hopi with the Eye of God design. That's a beautiful piece. And then this is a different style of squash blossom necklace. It doesn't have any squash blossoms actually. The squash blossoms are these little trumpet shapes. But that is a really neat modernist design. I see this pattern of Roseville in Spokane more often. This is the Tuscany pattern. I find it here more than I find it in a lot of other places. This is right about the time they're transitioning from the paper labels to the inscription. So this one, you have to know the shape. Very pretty with the variegations, I think. A whole bunch of vintage brass from the 70s. You'll see a lot of this in Washington State because we were close enough to India where a lot of it was coming from at the time. And you'll see a lot of things that have designs that were very traditionally Indian or Moroccan, or sometimes Turkish. And then you'll see things that were modern looking, like dolphins, some painted pieces. There are a few pieces here that are Southeast Asian that show various goddesses and deities. And occasionally you will see menorahs and other Judaica done in Israel in brass as well. This is a very nice Santini piece, the dancing couple. This was done in the 1970s. It's in perfect condition. And it has the signature of the artist who is no longer with us. And here is your artist signature and the N for Napoleon Capodimonte. In the Japo-Russian War, you would have seen cavalry saddles like this. This is actually a Japanese saddle. It's more elemental and stripped down, kind of like we think of with English saddles. Something a little different for the horsey set. A lot of people collect them and just display them. And they have this priced at only $100. If it was American, it would have sold immediately at that price.
Because it's real buffeted.
Oh, that's interesting. Thank you for showing me.
It shows you the age. age.
Ah, yes. Okay, yes. All of the sewing and the toughening so that it was comfortable to ride. And of course, if you're in battle, you need something because you could be up there for hours. Very interesting. How did you end up with the Japanese saddle?
I bought it from a lady in Spokane. I thought I was going to really use it. She
Yeah.
was using it as a child. The woman as a child sawed that off. Their little hooky bar.
Right, because they didn't want to catch on it. Yes. Very interesting. Thank you so much. Well, we have sure had fun at Custer's Antique Show. It was really fun to bring out a bunch of Expo 74 stuff, even though most of it's gone. But somebody was kind enough to give me this. So if I could get in my time machine, I can go back and actually experience the fair myself. We are left with the things that remain from it to experience now. And I'm so glad that we got to show you this experience. We had such a fun time, and we are really looking forward to hopefully being back here in the fall.
If you enjoyed this video, check out this one. Also, click thumbs up to like this video and check the description for information about our Patreon, our memberships. We've got a lot of different levels with different perks and bonus videos and early content. Also, please do check out our website, theantiquenomad.com, for appraisal help. And we'll see you again for more adventures in the antique and vintage community soon. Bye for now.